Welcome back, adventurers, to Let's Play Resident Evil, or to use its true name,
Biohazard.
Now it has been 4 months since Chris Redfield's ordeal in the mansion. However, Jill Valentine's ordeal has yet to begin. As with Chris's scenario, I will be playing Jill's scenario on real survival, that is manual aim only, and of course no linked item boxes, which basically means if I have to backtrack in order to retrieve an item from an item box in a different area, then that is what I must do. And once again I will be showing all such backtracking on screen as to prove that I am not cheating off screen in any way, shape or form. I will also endeavour not to use save states on screen and especially off screen as well. So if I die and I have to save, then that is what must happen. Now, also notice that both Chris and Jill's stars cards are signed by Brian Irons. Now, Brian Irons is the Chief of Police at the Raccoon Police Department, and he is not very well liked by his subordinates. He has a brief appearance in the novel A Biohazard: The Beginning. But, yeah, I don't really like Brian Irons all that much. Nobody likes Brian Irons. Once again, there is the notepad with Capcom's Biohazard, you can see in the lower left corner, as well as the M92FS Samurai Edge handgun manufactured by Joe and Robert Kendo of Kendo Gun Store, specifically for the STARS unit. Now, Jill Valentine's scenario is considered to be easier than Chris Redfield. She has a number of options available to her that Chris did not have. In certain instances, Jill Valentine can actually do the things that Chris would need Rebecca Chambers in order to deal with in the first place. And as such, she also has access to a certain weapon that Chris never gets in his entire scenario. But I will not be saying that here because we'll all be seeing what weapon it is when she gets it. I should also mention that Jill's scenario was the very scenario that I saw when my cousins first played Resident Evil back in 1996. I believe I mentioned this at the beginning of Chris's scenario, but just in case you haven't watched that particular video, I'm mentioning it now, especially since it's been a 4-month time jump between the end of Chris's scenario and the beginning of Jill's scenario. Before I begin this part of the Let's Play, I should also mention that I will be editing in post certain cutscenes that were originally omitted from the official retail release of both Biohazard and Resident Evil. That is to say, the full unedited intro of Biohazard in Technicolor instead of monochrome, which was a reference to the Night of the Living Dead back in the 1960s by the now late George Romero. And also a certain cutscene that was slightly cut, but I will be showing it in its entirety. It was a small cut, and yet having it back in actually adds a small yet powerful layer of atmosphere. But that's enough rambling from me. You don't want to see the screen any further than I do, so without further ado, let us begin Jill Valentine's scenario as she attempts to survive the mansion incident.
Alpha Team is flying around the forest zone situated in northwest Raccoon City, where we're searching for the helicopter of our compatriots Bravo Team, who disappeared during the middle of our mission.
You haven't found it?
No, I haven't found it Bizarre murder cases have recently occurred in Raccoon City. There are outlandish reports of families being attacked by a group of about 10 people. Victims were apparently eaten. Bravo team went to the hideout of the group and disappeared.
Look, Chris!
It was Bravo team's helicopter. Nobody was in it. But strangely, most of the equipment was still there. However, we soon discovered why.
Hey! Come here! Run for that house! I got a shotgun.
Chris Redfield. Jill Valentine. Barry Burton. Rebecca Chambers. Albert Wesker. Biohazard.
They have escaped into the mansion, where they thought it was safe. Yet.
What is this?
Wow! What a mansion!
Captain Wesker, where's Chris?
Stop it! Don't open that door!
But Chris is...
What is it?
Maybe it's Chris. Now, Jill, can you go?
I'm going with you. Chris is our old partner, you know.
Okay, let me handle this. Stay alert!
Didn't want to talk during the intro there because it allows us to immerse ourselves in the world of Resident Evil.
A dining room.
Thank you so much for that astute observation there, Barry. So as you can see, Jill Valentine has Barry Burton in her corner, the man who wasn't there in Chris's scenario.
What? What is this?
What is it?
Blood. Jill, see if you can find any other clues. I'll be examining this. Hope this is not Chris's blood.
I hope it isn't Chris's blood either. As you can see, Chris is not with us. And Barry is investigating. So we're back here in the dining room, and I believe that Jill makes the same observations as Chris Redfield does. Though I've always wondered, how does if Chris is still outside of the mansion being chased by the dogs, how does he actually get inside? I'm pretty sure that he finds a way. But the dining room is abandoned once again, and this time, unlike Chris, who lost his Beretta when the stars were being chased into the mansion, Jill Valentine has hers right off the bat. She also has a combat knife of her own, and she has a first aid spray. There's nothing really much to do in the dining room, so let us move into the adjoining corridor, because we need to investigate that gunshot, because the person could still be here. Kenneth Sullivan has seen better days. Also, that's a zombie. We need to run away from that and inform Barry as quickly as possible that we are not alone in the mansion.
Barry?
What is it?
Watch out! It's a monster!
Let me take care of this. What is it?
Kenneth was killed too. Maybe by this creature. Anyway, let's report this to Wesker.
Yeah, we should definitely go do that. Also, you saw in the cutscene, you can see Kenneth's decapitated head that was partially devoured by the zombie. Also, note that the zombie entered the door. I've heard many times people saying that zombies cannot use or open doors. Well, Resident Evil begs to differ. Zombies don't open doors often, but they can, and they do. Especially in the director's cut and the remake. So, let us head to our supervisor, Captain Wesker, and inform him of the situation. Man down.
Wesker! Help me look for him, Jill. And don't leave this hall for the time being.
And now Wesker has vanished, so Barry will examine the hallway, while Jill examines the downstairs. Nope, he's not hiding, so let's go tell Barry. Barry doesn't seem to have had much luck either.
Find anything, Jill?
Nothing. What is this all about? I can't figure it out at all.
Indeed.
Beats me, too.
Now it's Wesker's time to disappear. I don't know what's going on.
Well, it can't be helped. Let's search for him separately. I'll check the dining room again.
Okay, I'll try the door on the opposite side.
This mansion is gigantic. We could get into trouble if we get lost. We should start from the first floor, okay? And Jill, here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
Thanks. Maybe I'll need it.
Listen, if something happens, let's meet up in this hall. This time I'll be there.
And there he goes. By the way, I'm sure you've all picked up on the fact that the original Resident Evil has some very cheesy, not terrible dialogue. People say that it's bad, people say that it's terrible, but it was actually fitting, considering the fact that most of the live actors, who are the ones doing the voice acting, were not professionally trained actors. Hence that line of Jill being the master of unlocking. I believe in the Biohazard demo you could actually see, or at the very least, I believe in the Birth of Biohazard promo video, you could actually see the lockpick in Jill's inventory. You can't access Jill's lockpick. However, she has it automatically, which means she can open certain doors, like the sword key doors. She doesn't have to have the sword key in the original. She does in the remake, however. But also she can open the drawers that Chris would need to open with the old keys or the small keys, or the disc keys, depending on which version of Biohazard that you are watching. But now we are alone in the mansion. For now. Barry is in the next room, but we don't need to talk to him at this point. It's also been noted that, again, horror cliches, notwithstanding the fact that the stars have a tendency to split up in a horror situation. That is laughable, to say the least, but I will say that in its defense, the stars actually do say that they've been trained to act independently as a smaller specialist unit rather than as a large group. While that may sound plausible in conventional circumstances, however, such as usual police raids and so on and so forth, the situation that the stars are in on this very night is anything but conventional. Let's see if we can go outside and maybe Chris has found a hiding spot. I know where we're going. Hello, dog. Well, in violation of Wesker's previous orders to don't open that door, we definitely did open that door. However, it is too dangerous to go outside. Very true indeed. So we have no choice but to explore the mansion. There are actually two doors on the east side of the mansion. We cannot open this one, but it is locked with a carving of armor. We need the key for that. So let us go in the door that we were originally going to go into. And with this ominous music, the night has officially begun for Jill Valentine. Now I should mention that, before I do, if we go to the door here, Jill Valentine has used the lockpick, because she doesn't need the sword key. Also get the map from the woman drawing water. But before I go off on a tangent, there we go. Before I go off on a tangent, I should mention that I've heard about the now cancelled planned TV show for Resident Evil that was titled Arklay, which is the name of the Arklay Mountains. Which was sadly passed over back in 2014, 3 years ago. Now I've seen the proof of concept that was shown last month, October I believe. There's a map of the mansion and all the rooms we have to explore. The promotional concept video simply titled Dave. And I have to say that I didn't have much hopes, especially considering the fact that the previous live-action adaptations for Resident Evil, barring the first film, were not as good as everyone believed them to be. In fact, if I'm to be put bluntly honest, as I mentioned in the previous scenario of Chris Redfield, I found 4 of the 6 films, that is Apocalypse, Afterlife, Retribution, and especially the final chapter, to all be very sadly lackluster, especially given light that they must have worked very hard on those films. And they did make a lot of money on them, but I don't enjoy them because, in my personal opinion, they failed to capture the underlying essence of what made Biohazard, or Resident Evil, what it was. This was something that was actually captured in Dave. Dave had a lot going for it, I should say in past tense, since it's no longer being put into production. But it had all the essence of Resident Evil. It had the elements of character development and you know, emotion and tension, and also the fact that it takes place during the Arklay murders, the investigation into the series of inexplicable deaths that have been occurring from May through July of 1998, which the stars are now in the process of investigating. And I do not trust that corpse, especially given the wake of what just happened. Now, if I can carefully avoid that sleeping zombie over there. But yeah, I will actually probably be doing a live reaction to Dave on my channel, just to give my own personal opinion. And now, let us go further into the corridor. Everything seems fairly quiet at the moment. Unfortunately for us, the dogs that we were being chased by are now inside. And they will remain in that corridor until we dispatch them. Or they decide to leave outright. And there's a door over here that's locked with another armor lock. And there's also a herb in the corner, which will be very useful in lieu of the first aid spray. Also picked up the ink ribbons in that room, so that we have something to save when we reach a typewriter, which is the classical method of saving in old school biohazard games. And there is no zombie in here, unlike in Chris's scenario, because Jill's scenario in the original Biohazard is the easier scenario. Fortunately, there is nothing else. There are no old keys since Jill Valentine has the lockpick. Something I should also mention briefly is Resident Evil 7, which is a huge... It's a first-person horror game with updated graphics and a new engine that is a huge improvement over the likes of Resident Evils 5 and 6, in my personal opinion. A game that has gone back to the relative essence of what survival horror is actually meant to be, both in the survival aspect and the horror aspect. I remember this corridor all too well from my childhood. I mentioned this in my previous Let's Play videos in Chris's scenario, but I actually do have a past with Resident Evil, especially where Jill Valentine is concerned, because, as I mentioned earlier, this scenario was the very first scenario that I ever saw in Biohazard for the first time back in '96. And I believe with this I will leave the video here for the time being. And when we return, adventurers, we shall continue exploring the rest of the first floor of the mansion, as per Barry Burton's advice. So until that point, adventurers, until next we meet.